So recently, Vaush made a dumb argument.
There is no socialist policy. There's no such thing as a socialist policy. Do you know what the one socialist action is? Seizing the means of production. That is how you determine if a society is socialist or not. Communally owned means of production by the working class. That's it. There's no ambiguity in the definition. No hemming or hawing. No how socialisty is this policy. Do the workers communally own the means of production or not? If the answer is no, it is not socialist. It can be a social democracy. There can be elements of the society which lean more towards socialism, like a heavy integration of unions into society. That's kind of syndicalist. I'm here for it. But it still would not be a socialist society unless the workers own the means of production, as they did not in Nazi Germany, as they did not in the USSR.
Vaush presents a view of socialism, which is binary, where you're either socialist or you're not. I believe that socialism is better thought of as a gradient, where, as you go further to the left, you get more and more socialist. Why do I think this? First, virtually nothing in human psychology or sociology is binary. Consider gender. Reactionaries would have you believe that male and female are entirely separate, and that masculine and feminine shall never touch. Instead, most people understand that the scientific reality is that masculine and feminine are highly overlapping distributions, with a lot of behaviors and traits in common. Similarly, most research shows that political beliefs follow a roughly normal distribution. We can arbitrarily divide this into things like Democrat and Republican, but it certainly does not fit into a highly multimodal distribution as so, where you've got maybe commies over here and fascist over here. So if socialism is a human political institution, why would we expect it to be binary, unlike everything else that humans do? In short, we shouldn't. Second, the binary socialist idea forces socialism into a theoretical discussion rather than a practical one. Consider Vaush and ANCAP having a discussion. Vaush supports 100% socialism, and the ANCAP supports 0% socialism. But there's no evidence for either of these claims. No economy is over here, and no economy is over here. Most economies are somewhere in the middle. So if you want to make an evidence-based claim that we should move this way or that way, there just isn't anything there. Similarly, if Vaush tries to say, well, your free market policies over here have made people sad, then the ANCAP can simply respond, not true. Capitalism. And the same for Vaush. If the ANCAP says that your socialist policies have caused Venezuela to go down to the gutter, then Vaush can simply say, not true socialism. Neither of these is very helpful or convincing, because neither of them is empirically backed. If you want to follow in the Marxian tradition, understand that socialism must be scientific. You must base your beliefs on the empirical realities. Thus, I believe it is better to conceptualize socialist and capitalist economies, rather than as opposing, as a mixture, where on the left we might have 100% socialism, and on the right we might have 100% capitalism. As you move left, you've got a greater amount of worker control. The workers own more and more of those means of production that Vaush talked about. In contrast, over here, you've got more capitalist control, plenty of policies that tend to move this to the left. For example, laws that allow unionization or encourage it in business practices tend to give workers greater control. Similarly, environmental regulations tend to give the state some control in planning the economy for the benefit of the people rather than for profit. Consider the EPA. And similarly, if we talk about things like social housing, then we can talk about workers getting benefits without profit being the reason why. And if we ground ourselves in this empirical world, we can argue that all of these things tend to make people live better and happier lives. rather than just talking in a theoretical debate with no evidence at hand. Finally, if we imagine a society which is, let's say, 99.999% cooperative owned in Vaush's market socialist utopia. But, on the other hand, there remains a singular dude who still lives in a capitalist economy. Is this socialism? If this dude is out here selling tomatoes, and employing his son in the process of doing so, does this mean that the other 99%'s lives are meaningfully affected? No. We have to talk about how people's lives are actually lived, and that's that. I think thinking of socialism as a gradient better lines up with human reality. I think that it better allows us to engage in empirical arguments. And I also think it allows us to look at lives as they're actually lived. All this instead of some dumb theory bullshit.